To something you talked about, okay. The president is in his final term. Is he really? They said that you, the NDC, you're working hard. You want to win majority, super majority, or extra super majority in parliament. That's why you're fighting for Pandai, so that you would make President Mahama run again for a third term. What is your party position on this man? We've heard the president, I spoke to his Minister for Communication, Felix Kwetey, said that the president is not running again. Is the party working on something like this? If chances happen that let President Mahama run again, would you endorse that as a party?
First and foremost, you must appreciate that all over sub-Saharan Africa, if there is one country that has been able to provide a model that continue to be an inspiration in terms of democratic transition, is Ghana. That's why the recent thing that happened in Benin was a bit unfortunate, because Benin, along with Ghana, let's say Benin was holding the flag for the Francophones, and Ghana clearly holds a flag for the Anglophones. So what happened in Benin was really like a real slap in the face. And that for me also simply means that the searchlight must be put on Benin properly in order to understand what is happening there. If it's true that there is some kind of attempt to use what you call political manipulations to subvert things without necessarily a coup, those things have to be looked at, because we are talking about a situation where the ordinary people must constantly feel that we are empowered enough to make that ultimate decision. And not those who are in leadership thinking they are so smart that they can literally manipulate the processes constantly to their advantage. What it simply means is simple. Ghana that clearly has set this tone in terms of the transition in governance, in terms of keeping to our constitution, ensuring that we allow people to have the voices to make that decision. We at no point should ever encourage a situation where there is such what you call a disruption in our constitutional, shall I call it, what we stated that we ought to do. The president has spoken about this, and clearly he did it well, because he didn't want to allow such what you call conversations to continue as if he's entertaining it. That's not all. The party itself that has promised to ensure that we do what is right for the country has to ensure that in this spirit of reset, we are the ones who are ensuring that even though we have such a huge majority in parliament, we should use it only to be able to do what is good for the country and not trying to change constitutions because we are trying to make maybe one person happy.
So hand on heart, no Mahama third term.
We stand behind the president declaring that there will be no third term.
Okay, now that you've said that, very soon he will become lame duck, because power will start shifting. You're going to start looking for a flag bearer. We already know that a number of people are said to be expressing interest. This President Mahama is a man you believe to be the one who's holding this party together, the country together, because you have a reset, and he is the ultimate power, and he supports you in this agenda to do a reset. What if people start disrespecting him and disobeying his commands because there's a new guy on the block? How do you deal with that? How are you able to manage the powers of an outgoing president versus a new flag bearer who you have to project and promote as a party?
All right. In the first place, whoever emerges to become the presidential candidate of our party will definitely be somebody who is humble and also smart enough to appreciate that his chances of winning power the chances are totally dependent on the performance of John Mahama and the government. So if you clearly do know that you are taking the baton from someone, you will be the one to be in the very, very first forefront of ensuring that respect for that individual remains absolutely sacrosanct. You will be the one. Then naturally, if you set that tone that this, if you call it outgoing leader, is the one who determines the success of whoever is taking over, including even the NDC as a vehicle, then your own, the way you set that tone, make sure that the people who are around you immediately understand it. But if you yourself are literally short-sighted enough, not smart enough and not humble enough to appreciate that it is the success and should I call it, the success of John Mahama, especially in this second time, that would ensure that there will be future success for NDC as a vehicle and for individuals who will lead the vehicle. It means that the party would have maybe made a mistake choosing you. The party clearly that must constantly be able to see the way forward we'll be making a mistake choosing an individual who can simply understand this basic political reality. I do not see that happening. So I see whoever emerges to be one who will understand the primacy of John Mahama in terms of his success and ensuring that he's continued to be given that respect as a leader of the party, I mean, as a current leader of the party, who subsequently, if there is a presidential candidate, he ceases there to become the party, but still remains to call the only, shall I call it, the past presidential leader in our party. So naturally, that's a big voice.
There's a general belief that your chairman wants to run for flag bearer. Are you officially aware? Are you unofficially aware? How are you dealing with this as a party? You yourself, do you have an interest?
Let's say this way, that especially in the first year after you won power, any conversation regarding interest in running for power, I find it personally, I find it an insult to the NDC as a whole, an insult even to President Mahama.
It's too early.
Because we barely have come into office. We spent 8 years in opposition, made promises to people, and we've taken over power. The promises that we've made to the country, we are now beginning to implement them. There are promises we've made to our own political people. I mean, in terms of people who have worked for us. We have not even come to, should I call it 10% or even 20% of the accomplishment of that. And whereas leadership should be focused on ensuring that this number one thing is the focus, that you think about it, you actually are going to start what you call spending your energy now thinking about what is in it for me. What it simply means out there, the millions of NDC people who are watching me, any individuals who show that tendency are individuals who are simply telling you that they care about themselves far more than they care about the organization. Because your number one focus at the moment should be the success of this vehicle. That President Mahama should actually succeed. That the ministers are held to their feet ahead to the fire for them to do what is right. The chief executive do what is right. The party as an organization continue to show the discipline and the support for the system. That's what you do. Subsequent to the first year, you now go into what you call the reorganization of the party, starting from the branch level, through the constituency, through the region, then to the national level. When those things are done, then you are now talking about having done the necessary, and hopefully by that time you have done a lot more, not just in delivering for the country, but also delivering for the party. When people subsequently then say that, okay, you know what, we are thinking that we want to run after President Mahama, the party will be far more ready to listen. And even the country will be much more willing to want to know, having known what it is as a vehicle has done. So I want to say that I don't want to personally talk about individuals, but it's generally a message to all individuals who clearly possibly are showing a bit of haste, a bit of impatience. Relax. But this is not the moment to start jumping.
This statement you're making should possibly be a statement you make to your boss and also the chief of staff, because
it's a statement I make to everybody.
But have you had a chance to speak to the chief of staff whom we've heard is interested, and also to General Mosquito whom we've heard is interested?
Let's just say that,
as General Secretary, will you be able to tell them this?
Let's just say that I mean, if you notice, initially, I'm sure you heard a bit of things that amount to people, shall I call it gunning, but I'm sure you notice at the moment that so clearly, the message is simply anchoring for people to appreciate and listen. There are right things to be done. The right things have to be done in the right moment. Okay. Otherwise, whatever good intention you have becomes not very good.
A Mosquito Julius contest will be bloody for the NDC, don't you think?
Let's see. At the end of the day, you must always remember the party remains sovereign. And I've known one thing about this party. This party is very, very smart, very discerning. And this party simply knows whose moment it is. So I don't really think, regardless of whoever emerges for contest, I believe the party will take a decision that will ensure that first and foremost, the interests of the party remain supreme. And then also, whoever is going to emerge is strong enough to be able to lead the party well.
Will Fifi Kwetey support any candidate in the?
Too early to state who I will support or who I will support.
Your friends in the NPP are going to the polls next month. When are you going to the polls for a flag bearer? Is it next 2 years, next 3 years? What's your schedule like? Yeah,
invariably we will not be looking at, as I told you, we have a process to now go through the proper, what our friends are doing, again, for me, It's what happens when sometimes you are so badly bruised and you run into a state where if you're not careful, you try to literally do things ahead of themselves. Because you know what, if you look at should I call it an organic tree, you know that the tree has roots, and those roots are always the most important ones. So every process must derive from roots. You don't start processes from the very, very top of the tree. You start processes from ensuring that the roots
So that's what you're going to branch.
So that's what you constantly must do. You go to the branches,
that.
then the branches now move to constituencies, constituencies move to regions, then to the national. Then whatever is emerging beyond national as far as leadership of the party to run for presidency is concerned is taking its strength from the very roots. Okay. But what you see there, but I can appreciate them. They've gone through a bit of trauma. The reset blow has not been an easy blow to deal, especially talking about a political party that has been feeling very, very good and thought that they were the best.
So because they are doing,
since
because they are doing flag bearer first, you think they will run into difficulties?
Anyway, it's their party to run, but I simply do not understand how it is that you'll be able to have somebody emerging to lead your party at the highest level and whose strength is not on the back of what you call the root of the party, because the people who are there at the moment represent the past. You've not given an opportunity since loss of election to know what views are at your polling stations, whether those polling stations, who they are. Maybe they have different people that they want to be in charge. Different people want to be in charge of the constituency. You must allow that. So in the back of this new voice, when you emerge, you know that you are leading a new voice, as opposed to you are simply there almost by default.
So based on your calculations, when should an NDC presidential primary be?
NDC definitely would not be looking at primaries before the middle of 2027.
Okay, so up to next 2 years.
Definitely
Very
not before the middle of 2027.
But one thing that will be happening is the election of national executives. That's happening in December next year. I would ask Fifi Kwetey if he wants to run again and what legacy he has built for the NDC. Please stay with us. This is Face to Face. You're welcome back. This Face to Face on ChannelOne television. It's December 2026. It's 25. What am I ahead of my time? NDC people went to the polls and elected you. I remember I was at that Congress where you were elected. You've been in office for 3 years. You've won the ultimate election, presidency. But are there other things you promised, and have you delivered those things for the party?
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's nearly 3 years. We were elected on the 17th of December, 2022. So today is 14th. So basically in 3 days, will be exactly our 3rd anniversary. And I'm happy that the promises we made to our people, we are working steadily to ensure that we can fulfill those promises. Of course, the first promise made was that we were going to put in place the system that will ensure that we can deliver power to our people. Remember that we have tried 2016, we couldn't win. We tried in 2020, we couldn't win. So that was like virtually 8 years. So we needed to ensure that we work hard enough to be able to deliver that victory. I'm personally happy because that would be, shall I call it, the second time that the party had been in opposition for 8 years, and then I came in as one of the executives. I did the same thing back in 2025 when I came in, then in charge of communication of the party.
2008.
2008, and we were able to deliver a very important victory at the time. Not with the margin we saw this time, but it was an important victory. Most people didn't believe it was possible. And this time again, we've done it, but this time even with a much, 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 much bigger margin. So that is the first thing that we did. And as I said, it's important, having had that victory, to also let your people appreciate that this victory is bigger than us. That orientation is one that I say will continue. Because it's not easy for people to simply come to terms with the fact that, hey, even though they can see the victory, they see that you're having to third majority in parliament. Sometimes they start to realize, hey, it's because of us. It's because we work super hard. It's true that we work hard, but it's a lot more than that. So we need to keep that balance all the time. And that is a conversation, that's an internal conversation that we continue to have. That's another one. We are ensuring that we we work closely with government. And I would say that again, there's a bit of appreciation. For instance, the heart of the government is always the economy. The heart of government is always the economy. And the difficulties often that emerge at the level of the economy often come from the politics. People often think that it's the economic management that causes problem. No, I can tell you. The biggest problem of especially democracies in our part of the world is often the political pressure. When you have the politics being, should I call it, the politics is in one lane, the economy is in one lane, there's going to be a problem. Especially when the pressure can build in on the economic manager in order to do what it is that the party wants. Often that's where the derailment of the economy happens. Now, so if you happen to have the general secretary of your party who has been a former deputy finance minister, who also has worked with the current minister in parliament, both of them in the same finance committee, and of course who have built good friendship together, it helps. It helps because the political pressure gets buffered. Why? Because the person,
you understand the situation.
They understands it. So where we need to show patience, we're able to have that conversation and give the president the backing. Say, Mr. President, you have our backing.
But you don't know that the demands are high.
That's true. That's very true. But you see, you must appreciate all the people really want is that you are at least working for the good of the country as a whole. And if you see what you are doing, I mean, you have, for example, you are securing the country's, the economic stability that is coming. That the currency, you are doing something about the currency. You have reduced the debt situation. You are doing something about the road system. You are gradually freeing, and you are doing all this without borrowing. That you are literally coming through a very difficult situation. When they see that, then they clearly know that a lot more good things are going to be coming tomorrow. So I would say that in terms of my Monday, the most crucial aspect now is to ensure that we navigate through this initial difficulty until we reach a point where the economy is become strong on its own. Then we can say that we are good enough.
But at the party secretariat, what are the things that we can point to and say, no, this is a Fifi Kwetey legacy, or this is something Fifi Kwetey promised and he has delivered, and that's why we are seeing this at the secretariat level?
For example, even leading to the election itself, it was very clear, having been in charge of the party prior in terms of the communication of the party, and coming now as a general secretary of the party, one of the first things I noticed very quickly was that the last election was not an election that we were going to win on the back of the communication. I immediately saw it. In fact, as usual with my practice, I started the year wanting to do a series of press conferences to be able to literally take on what I thought was wrong with the economy and all that. And I did the first one, actually. And then immediately I did that. It dawned on me that no, this election is not going to run on back of communication. What we needed to do was to focus what I call the election engineering. So that's why the election directorate became virtually like my number one focus in terms of working very closely with my very good friend, now late, Dr. Kofi Omaniboama, working to ensure that the systems were in place to ensure that we simply police the polls.
So it was not to set any record straight?
No. This time around, it was to make sure we set the record straight at the electoral level, at the electoral engineering level.
So refocusing on the agenda.
And that became very, very important. We place the resources in those places, ensure that the people who were in charge, the technical people, were given room to bring their ideas, and ensure that the system as a whole, and that was very massive.
When are you going to open nominations for the national executive?
We will start, as I said, with the branches. So
when is that starting?
We're looking at sometime in the first quarter next year. We will be starting that process, and then gradually move it through the branch, through the constituency, through the region, and eventually to the national.
Will you
the
run
national most likely will be around December.
Will you run again?
Oh, definitely. I intend to run and
to do what? You promised victory. You've got a victory. Go and retire because you have a history of voluntary retirement. You retire from parliament.
The reset is important. I mean, it's important for us to ensure that we support President Mahama in ensuring that this reset is not just successful, but becomes, should I call it a foundation that on which we can anchor future success as far as this party is concerned, and also for the country.
So you would run to maintain and protect the legacy? To
ensure that we can keep the legacy, we can protect this, to ensure that we do what is right for our country.
Which means that Fifi Kwetey is not running for president or running mate?
I don't know why you're still jumping ahead. But let's focus on the first things first, and the first thing is to ensure that we secure the party.
By 2028, why should Ghanaians vote again for the NDC? What would be the things you would expect to see? For which reason Ghanaians would say, listen, NDC is again and should be entrusted? I
would say it's a bit early. That's why we need to work hard now. and ensure that the things that we have promised, we deliver them. The conduct that we promised that we show that conduct. We spoke against corruption. We through our demonstration, we show that we are not perfect, but we are not falling to those standards. That we hold our own into account when they do what is wrong. Now, on the back of that, then you are able to now to say, Ghanaians, you know what, this is what I promised you in 2024. That will be able to bring conduct in office that would literally eschew corruption. That if somebody does what is wrong, we'll punish the person. That we want to do well with the economy. We want to place the country ahead of our own consideration. We want to ensure that the party does what is good for the country. On the back of that, you show the things you've done, whether in road, whether in energy. I mean, you've been able to resolve doomsday very quickly, even though people thought it was going to be a problem. We finally resolved the issues of a financial sector and all
so
that.
So that you still look good.
Then we can then go to the.
But the problem for you would be that you'll be presenting a new candidate.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Don't forget, as I said, victory depends on what the vehicle has done. When the vehicle performs well, you're able to win. President Mahama was vice president in 2012 when Prof. Ms. passed away. Ordinarily, that would have been a difficult one because he was running against somebody who had ran to and nearly even became president in 2008. Yeah. But because of the good work done by the vehicle between 2009 and 2012, he was able to have.
So strengthen the vehicle and the driver would.
The vehicle should always be number one.
Honorable Fifi, Fiavi, Kwetey, So that's it by way of face to face today. I'm Umaru Sandamado. This has been Channel One Television, a conversation with General Secretary of the Governing NDC. Thank you for watching.